I am Jessica Butts. Welcome to the Front Seat Life podcast, where I help you learn to be unapologetically who you are and live your life from the front seat through personal development, self-awareness, and real and raw conversations about life, love, and business. I'm a former psychotherapist and couples counselor turned author, speaker, coach, and lovingly, well, I hope so anyway, been nicknamed Jessica Kick Butts because I believe sometimes we need hand holding and sometimes we just need to be told the freaking truth, even if it hurts a little. So each week I'll be sharing truth bombs, life lessons, powerful interviews, and intuitive insights to empower you to get up, show up, and live your life in a new, powerful, authentic way. So if you're ready to climb into your front seat and embark on a journey of total transformation, you have come to the right place. Start your engines. Let's do this. Front Seat Lifers, it is your host, Jessica Butts, and I have a special, amazing, wonderful guest for you today. So Michelle Mazur and we met years ago. We both live here in the Seattle area, and she is a rock star. She's just a straight up weirdo, just like me and so many of you. She's a total intuitive type. She has a Ph.D. in communications. She created this company called 3-Word Rebellion that I gravitate towards, hence Front Seat Life. And it is just a fascinating, capturing way to describe what you do in your business. So all of you know that I am an intuitive coach. I coach intuitive people and intuitive business owners, and I love the weirdness about who we are. And one of our biggest issues as intuitives is we have a hard time focusing. We have squirrel syndrome and we're all over the place and we want to talk about 57 different things. And one of my main goals with all of my clients, but definitely obviously my business clients, is to help them focus, to help them get out of the squirrel syndrome and focus on one thing. One thing. There's also a book called The One Thing. But Michelle's philosophy on this 3-word rebellion is one of the best tools I've ever seen or heard or studied about getting clear about what your message is so that you don't go off and squirrel. So that's, I think you guys know this. I only bring you guests that I am myself obsessed with. I do most of my episodes by myself because I am very, very clear about the niche of this podcast, which is how to live your best innate self as an intuitive type in your life and your business, and soon to come relationship stuff. But so that is my super singular focus, and then helping my intuitive clients stay really focused on that. And again, Michelle's 3-word rebellion is going to blow your socks off today. And she's just a really, really amazing human being. Also a very great guest speaker. And so, sometimes you bring guests on and you're like, oh my God, this is like painful. That is not the case with her. She is absolutely an amazing person, amazing business owner, an amazing woman, an amazing intuitive, and an amazing guest. So enjoy the episode. All right, Front Seat Lifers, it is Jessica Butts, your host and CEO of obviously Front Seat Life. And I have a very special, wonderful guest. Her name is Michelle Mazur. And here's the deal. So that's what this podcast this year primarily is about, is really bringing together some badass women who are bucking the system, who are going against the status quo and doing their own fucking thing in this world. And Michelle is totally doing that. So she and we started this, we're on Zoom right now. We always started ahead of time. And then I'm like, And then I'm like, shit, just stop talking and let's just record. So we were about to go into this conversation, and now here we are. She and I used to know each other through eWomen.
Yes.
And we were both kind of just starting out a little bit. I think we were like Bambi, like little wonky legs, like where do we land? What do we do? And we were just saying like we're both like in a completely different place. So Michelle, introduce yourself to the Fabulous Front Seat Lifers, the podcast, and then tell us like, I want to know this journey that you've been on. Like how have you gone from this woman and these Bambi legs to where you are now?
Oh, wow. Yes. So I'm Dr. Michelle Mazur. I'm the CEO of Communication Rebel. I'm the creator and author of The 3-Word Rebellion, which is all about creating a one-of-a-kind message that grows your business into a movement. And it's been an interesting journey because Jessica, when you first met me, I was a public speaking coach.
Yeah.
That was what I was doing. And that was really, it wasn't all what my training was in because I have a Ph.D. in communication. I was an academic. Like that was really what my upbringing is in. But when we first met, I was just starting out in business and I was kind of doing what I knew and what I was good at, which was public speaking. But really what was interesting now, and hindsight being 2020, what I was always doing with people was more around their message and their messaging. Because I was most interested in like, okay, how is that going to be received by people? So if you say it like that, what are they going to be thinking? Is it going to be getting them closer to saying yes? Or are you pushing them away? Is it going to raise objections in their mind? Or are you getting them more and more interested? And that was always my main interest in communication. Like, how are people receiving your message? And I grew my business as a public speaking coach for about 5 years. And then I think it was 2016. Was it 2016? It was either 2016 or 2017.
Yeah.
Where I literally kind of had that fuck that shit moment. Like, I can't do this anymore.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was December. I was wrapping up the last podcast episode of my podcast, the Rebel Rising podcast. And I just thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. I can't talk about speaking.
Wow.
I'm one Google search away from being replaced. Like, I don't want to talk about how to get speaking gigs. I don't want to talk about how to create a speech. I don't want to talk about pitching yourself or how to get paid. I don't care. Like, I am so easily replaced. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Because I was working with great people. I was working with great women who had great messages. And I loved that. I hated the speaking industry because I think the speaking industry really doesn't want to pay speakers. Side note, if you want to be a speaker, they don't want to pay you. Seriously. Like, I know some amazing speakers with best-selling books that struggle to get paid these days. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what am I going to do? And I love Christmas and the holidays because it's always this great time to kind of reflect, and I don't do anything. I always reserve that time off. And I think it was 2016 because I was at this point and I was sitting there and I'm like, you know what's really awesome with all of the social movements I was seeing on the rise? I was like, they're so amazing at summing up the change they want to create in the world in just a few words, whether it's Black Lives Matter or Me Too or Never Again or even Make America Great Again. Like, they encapsulate the change they want to create in just a few words. And I was like, that's so amazing. And then I started thinking about the entrepreneurs I loved, like Simon Sinek and Start With Why, or Mel Robbins and the 5-second rule, or Marie Forleo and Everything is Figure Outable. I'm like, wow, those people do the exact same thing as social movements. I'm like, good. Yeah, it's like your message is so important in getting you known. And I thought to myself, I was like, I wonder if I could take questions from social movement theory, like, what are you rebelling against? What's the change you're trying to create in the world? And use them with my clients to see if I could get them to their core message. Like, let them just kind of free write, dump their ideas out of their head. I was like, I wonder if I could help them figure out what their core message is. And that worked. And I'm like,
awesome.
Okay, that's super cool. Like, that works.
So let's pause there for a second, because my listeners are twofold. They are kind of, well, they're all over the place, but they're pre-entrepreneurs. So there's a lot of them that are intuitive types. By the way, Michelle, what's your type? Are you an ENFJ or an INFJ?
Yes, I'm an ENFJ.
Okay. Again, as I always say, in graduate school, we used to call this, we smell like each other. Like, we're very drawn to each other because we're the same type. And so the majority of my listeners are also intuitive types. And so there is this need to, one, rebel, which is what you're talking about. And I want to dig more into that.
Yes.
But there's also this, we want to do things different. So leave corporate America. I mean, it's very much my story, your story, like leave corporate America, leave the husband, you know, like, as you said, fuck this shit. Like, I want to just go do the things that I want to do. You're both of us are sitting in our home offices, recording podcasts, saying fuck this shit on a podcast, doing what we want to do, like saying what we want to say.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of my listeners that are still in the old world, the was world, the husband, the was world, the was job, whatever. So what was the moment of transition? So take us back to that moment where you finished your podcast and was like, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore. What was there this, oh my God, I'm a loser. I can't do this. I'm never going to do this. Or was it full inspiration? Was it a God moment? Do you remember? Talk to us about the moment of transition. I love these moments.
What was so interesting about it, because Jenny Dawn,
my dear friend.
Yes, your dear friend, my dear friend.
Yes.
I remember having a conversation with her right before that moment. I told her, I was like, I feel like there's something really big wanting to come through, and I don't know what that is. Like, it felt like there was something that was sitting outside of me that was stewing, and I was just like, I don't know what this thing is, but it's here, and I'm just like, I'm just going to be open to it. And so when I had that moment of just kind of, well, fuck that shit, and I just don't know what I'm going to do, instead of like freaking out, like, oh my God, how am I going to make money? I'm like, you know what? Nothing actually needs to change right now. I'm just going to take these few weeks and be open to what comes through.
Is that not the most powerful thing? I think people are still resistant to doing this, but when we pause, take space. So you just said two very powerful things. One is the universe or God, whatever you believe in or whatever the listeners believe in, is giving you a message. It's like Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in Big Magic. Like, the butterfly was kind of flittering around you and it was about to land on you, the idea. And if we don't slow down and settle and give it some space, it cannot land on us.
Yes, exactly. And so I think when you're in that transition space, realize you don't have to make a decision right then. Like, know that the decision is coming. And you're still okay. Everything is fine in the moment. You still have money. You're still safe. You're still secure. You don't have to like burn your business down or tell your boss to take this job and shove it or any of those things right in that moment. And give yourself some space and time to think and journal and let things like come through. That's why I always love the holiday season. And I think, especially because I'm a former academic, I always took those 2 weeks to myself, and it's just a pattern I've developed. And I've always had these epiphanies during those 2 weeks.
So good.
And it's because I give myself that space and that time to be like, and I'm seeing these patterns, and isn't that interesting? And what if I try it? And it's just like that, what if? Well, what if I try it? I mean, it might not have worked. I don't know. But I was open, and I was open to trying it. And my clients, bless their hearts, were like, sure, that sounds like fun. Why not? I've been struggling with trying to figure out what I'm going to say for years. free writing and dumping all of my ideas on you sounds like a great idea. So let me do that instead.
So I love this. So it sounds like so a couple things. One, it sounds like you got more clear about your passion.
Mm-hmm.
You were also paying attention to what was going on in the world.
Yes.
Like the world is also giving you a message. And then you got more niche. Would you say that's true? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Because then it was like, oh, okay, let's go into this like core message idea, because I feel like that was, it's kind of the linchpin for your business in a lot of ways. And it trips people up.
For sure.
And I was like, if I could help people with that, that would be very helpful. And then it's like you can build your messaging out from there.
So did that idea come from that time?
Yes.
Oh, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love that. Okay. So beautiful. Thank you for being honest and transparent about that. Because I think my listeners love to know those aha moments. Like I called that, mine were the kitchen floor moments, on my knees in my office moments. Like I've had multiple iterations of that in my life and in my business. And every single time it took space. It took releasing control, which is very hard for us ENFJs, releasing control, opening up space, and being open to new possibilities. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So then comes this 3-word rebellion. So talk to us about this. And I love that it's like comfortable with yourself to rebel. So talk to us more about this, because I'm obsessed with this. I love it.
Yeah. So what was interesting, what happened next is like I had this idea and I was like, oh, okay, so notice this pattern. This is super cool. And I had a meeting with a friend of mine who's a book coach. Her name is Jenny Nash. And I was telling her about this pattern and she's like, oh my gosh, Michelle, that's so cool. She's like, you should write a book about it. She's like, you should call it something like the 3-word speech. And I was like, I like 3 words. I don't like speech because I don't want to work with speakers anymore. I was like, but that's so close. I was like, what is it? And then it was like, once again, a process of giving it space and being like, what is it? What is it? And then I'm like, oh, it's the 3-word rebellion. My company's name Communication Rebel. I'm like, it's right there, right? And that, like, even when I had that idea come through, that was kind of another kitchen floor moment, because it was like a message that I felt was so big and it scared the crap out of me. It scared the crap out of me so much I didn't tell my husband for a week.
Oh, wow.
Because
you were really holding it in.
Because it felt so big. Like I was like, oh, this could be like a thing. I feel like this is a good idea and it could be a thing. And I remember I waited a week and finally I told him over beers. I was like, hey, so I have this idea and it might change my business. And what do you think? So I explained it and he's like, oh, that's really cool and easy to understand. I like it. I'm like, yay.
And it's completely changed your life. I mean, you've now written a book. You have this talk. How much more do you love your work?
Oh my gosh. Literally, this work allows me to bring all of my strengths to my business, because what I realize it allows me to do is that it allows me to bring my research skills, because I use qualitative analysis to analyze other people's writing. I get to bring my love of words and social movements. Yeah, nerd alert, totally. And I'm like, it's allowing me to help people get clarity and bring their good work into the world. So I love my work like a million times more. It's something that's completely different than anyone else is doing. It's a completely different approach to messaging. And it's just like, oh, it's so fulfilling to do it. It's like when you find the right thing, like you just know.
Yeah. And you'll likely be doing this. I can see you doing this for the rest of your life because you found the thing.
Yeah, it's the thing.
And so when my girl bosses specifically, so, I have a bunch of different kind of people that I work with, but my girl bosses are just starting out and they often have this feeling of so worried that they can't change the thing. And I'm like, I don't love when people go from a communications expert to selling mascara. That's always my joke. You don't get to completely change, but there's a pivot, there's a niche, there's a fine tuning. And when you find that thing, my thing was live your life from the front seat life thing. I mean, all of a sudden I was just like,
Yes.
And now I will say this on air live now for the record. I will do this until the day I die because I would do this for free. And so I think for the people listening that are in this realm of kind of starting their businesses, know that things will morph a little bit. I love the word pivot and get a little more niche instead of like off to the deep end and starting a new business. It's just a pivot and you'll know when you find it. I think it's probably when you met your husband, right? You're kind of like, oh, he's the guy. Like I get it. Or you meet your partner and you're like, oh, like this is what it's supposed to feel like and look like.
Yes. I think that's exactly it. And you can't be afraid of the pivot and telling your audience, because I still will help people with like keynote speeches, because the 3-word rebellion process actually rolls quite nicely into writing keynote speeches. It's a little bit different now.
Yeah.
But I'm still essentially helping people with their messaging. It's just a little bit different. So it wasn't really hard for my audience to understand. And most of them were super excited for me. They were like, oh gosh, this makes so much sense for you. I'm so excited. So I think we have a lot of fear that once we find the thing, that, oh, I'm going to lose all of my audience and nobody's going to buy from me anymore. And literally the opposite happens. Like people are like, oh, I love this idea. And for me, what I realized when I found the 3-word rebellion after taking that kind of week pause, not telling my husband, I immediately decided like, okay, I'm going to do a webinar and just kind of announce this to my community and test it. I was just like, let's test it and see if people are interested. I'll just roll it out to my list, do a training, see if anybody likes it. Like there was no pitch, there was no anything. I was just like, I want your feedback, come show up and let me know. And people showed up and they were like, oh, this is really interesting. I wonder what my 3-word rebellion is. And I'm like, oh, okay, people actually like it. And it gave me some good feedback. It helped me refine the concept and the idea as I started writing the book. So it was so helpful just to put it out into the world as I was developing it. Because, I mean, even though the book's out in the world, I'm still like, building my relationship with the 3-word rebellion.
That is so true. I've said this for years that one of the best things about writing a book, I think, is not actually the book, but it's getting super clear about your messaging and about your content, because you actually have to put it in black and white. Like you and I as ENFJs, we can do podcasts all day long. We can do videos all day long, but you put that shit in print and it's like, oh, I actually need to really, really think that and feel that. And that process for me of writing both of my books was hands down the most transformational in getting clear about what I believe in, what my point of view is.
Yes. And I think it was so helpful for me to clarify. And it's interesting because I'm still like, I'm like, I already want to do a second edition of the book. And I'm like, not yet.
Totally. But it does, right? It continues to grow and evolves and changes. Okay. So let's jump into this because I really am pretty obsessed. I'd love for you to give a couple more examples. Like I love those examples. And what this is about for you, about bucking the system.
Yes.
Like it's so about being rebellious and doing it your own way. And this is why you and I kind of reconnected, is I'm doing this whole like being apologetically who you are thing and just standing out. And, you know, as we've been saying numerous times on here already, fuck that shit and like doing it your own way. And we're so in this world right now where I think we get to play with this, especially as women.
Yes.
So talk to us all about all of that stuff.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I realized yesterday I was chatting with some friends of mine and we get into this entrepreneurial world because we like buck the corporate system and we're like, all right, I'm going to do this business. I'm going to be free and I'm going to do what I want. And then we buy these courses and these programs and then they start telling us what we should do and what kind of business we should have. So it's like we get another boss.
You are literally in my brain right now, Michelle. I've been talking to Stephanie about this. I'm like, stop. She's my assistant, by the way. And I'm like, stop telling me about how other people are doing stuff. Like, I love some Amy Porterfield, but I am not Amy Porterfield. She's an ISFTJ. I'm an ENFJ. Like, we're completely different people. Like, I don't want to know how that person does it. I got to do it my own way.
Exactly.
Oh my God. I love that you said that.
And I'm like, and I feel that too. And so I work with so many people who are like, I want to create success on my own terms. I want a business that looks the way I want it to look. And I think we've kind of created our own like guru bosses or whatever. And so for me, the rebellion, it's just like you see something in the status quo and you just say, I don't think that's right, or I don't think it has to be that way. Why don't we question it? Like, what if we looked at it a different way? Like, what would the world look like if we created businesses that were uniquely ours or uniquely suited to our strengths and what we did best? What would the world look like? And then putting it out into the world and not being afraid of it. So for me, a message always starts with understanding exactly what you're against in the status quo, why you don't like it, what the implications of it, how it's hurting your people, and then understanding like, what is it that you're trying to change in the status quo? What's that big result that you're trying to get for your people? Because people rally around the change that you're trying to create in the world, right? That's what's drawing them in towards you. Yes, they want to know what you're rebelling against. And that's honestly the easy part of the whole messaging thing, to be like, yes, I'm against, bro marketing and these one size fits all programs and businesses and all of that. But then to say like, oh, but this is really what I want to see. I want to make communication matter. I want people to not use manipulative tactics to get people in programs. I want good business owners who are doing amazing work to be really known for their work, to paint that picture of possibility and to find that message from it. That's the more tricky part, because I think our egos get in the way sometimes of like, how are you going to make that happen? And it doesn't matter how. It matters that you put the vision out into the world.
And do you believe that we do that by connecting to where our clients are at that time? Like, I don't love using the pain. Like, that's a very common thing, like connect to their pain, but it's about connecting to the feelings that they're feeling at that time. Is that true?
Yeah, I think it's about, I'm always big into, with messaging, thinking about the emotional arc.
Yeah.
It's that, that frustration, because usually when people come to me, they're frustrated. They've set a lot of money on fire taking courses or hiring PR people before they were ready for it, or marketing teams, or building $10,000 funnels that didn't work. And then they threw another $10,000 trying to fix it. And really it was their message that was the problem. And so they just they're frustrated and feel like they've been screwed over. And I get that at a very visceral level. Mm-hmm. And so when you're presenting something different and you're saying, no, this is high touch, I'm going to be there for you, then you're creating something different for them. And so, I think the emotion is an important thing to tap into, but also giving them hope that it can be different.
So good. And that's your solution. I mean, for my business listeners in particular, my entrepreneurial listeners, we talk a lot about that, about tapping in, and you're saying not the pain so much, but the emotional arc is what you were talking about. So frustration or lostness or whatever.
Overwhelm.
Yes. Yeah. And then giving them hope. And that hope comes with, our job is to give, I call it a proprietary system. And so you now have a proprietary system. I have a system. We have a way that we specifically work with our clients to give them a solution or hope or a system to show them a solution to their problem.
Yeah, to give them a way out of that overwhelm, to get them to the next stage, which is kind of that, whether that's relief or some other emotion. But I'm always thinking about, what is it that emotional journey? I mean, yes, what are we saying? But also that emotional journey that we're taking them on, that framework. Yeah. I
want to dig in a little bit to the 3 words. So this is a super stupid question, but my listeners have to be thinking this if I'm thinking it. Does it just have to be 3 words?
Yes. So in the book, I give creative constraints, which are rules, but it can be 2 to 5 words.
Okay, good.
So everybody asked me that. I was like, Yes, it can be 2 to 5 words, but the 2 to 5 word rebellion makes a really lousy title.
It's a terrible
for a book.
title. Okay, talk to us about this. Talk to us about the importance of this sentence, like front seat life or be unapologetically who you are or whatever the thing is.
Yes. So the importance of it is that it's incredibly sticky, or what I call it creates an intrigue loop. Because what the 3-word rebellion does is the first thing it does is it stops the other person. It grabs their attention because it's something a little bit different, right? Like start with why, or the 5-second rule. You go, that's a little bit interesting. Or front seat life. You go, what does that mean? Right? Like it's just a little like, oh, that's interesting. I've not seen those words together before, right? It just makes our brain go, oh, that's a pattern disruptor.
Love it.
And then it takes us one step further because it makes us think, well, what does that mean for me? Because we always want people to start thinking about themselves, not about us. Our message is never for us. It's always about our audience, our people, especially if you want to grow your business into a movement, whether that's a movement of 5 people or a movement of 5 million, it doesn't matter, but it has to be about them. So if you think about something, I talk a lot about Mel Robbins was like a big inspiration for me with this book. And it's like the 5-second rule. When I first heard it, I was like, what is that? And so I Google it and I'm like, okay, so she teaches people to count backwards from 5 and take an action. I'm like, all right, so how can I use that? Like all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, what does that mean for me? And how could I use that in my life? Or start with why. It's like, okay, I'll start with my why, but what is my why? Ooh, let me ponder what that means. And so when we do that, it's like when I'm thinking about myself, then I'm going to remember that message. I'm going to talk about it with other people. Like I need to find out what my why is, or I need to figure out what my 3-word rebellion is. What are my 3 words? So it's just incredibly sticky.
So awesome. Is there a way that you can tell us a little bit? Obviously, I want people to go buy your book. I'm assuming it's available on Amazon.
Yes. Yes.
And they can find you where? On Instagram, all the places.
Oh, yeah. Instagram's probably my number one place. I'm at Dr. Michelle Mazur, and you can find all the information about the book at 3wrbook.com. So all the places you can buy the book.
Okay, so the free version on the podcast is what are some steps to help people start getting clear about their 3-word rebellion?
So the first step is super fun. You get to get your ideas out of your head and on to paper with free writing. Or if you're an extrovert, I highly recommend using Otter AI. It's a free app and you just record and it translates for you or it transcribes for you automatically. It's awesome for extroverts because you can just rant and rave and you get it transcribed.
Holy
instantly.
shit. Will you spell this? Otter, O-T-T-E?
Yeah, Otter like the animal. Yeah. OTTER.ai.
Ooh,
it's
awesome.
free up to 600 minutes a month.
Love life hacks. Great life hack. Thank you, darling. All right, great. Keep going.
Yes. So here are some free prompts to get you started. And I recommend doing this for about 15 minutes. And with free writing, it's all about moving past like your thinking brain and just getting into this kind of ranting and raving mode. So the first question or prompt you can use is just, it pisses me off when ... And you can start broad. You can start, if you're not a business owner, start with anything. I sometimes highly recommend just starting with anything. Like, it pisses me off when somebody cuts me off in traffic. It pisses me off when people buy things they don't need. It pisses me off, and just go nuts. Because the goal with this is just to dump your head out and get clear, like just get empty. So first part is rebellion. So it pisses me off when. Do that. And then the second step is then you get to talk about the change you want to create in the world. So my favorite prompt for this is, I want to live in a world where ... I want to live in a world where the good business owners always get the best clients who pay on time, period. And you just write for 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
an hour.
And the great thing is, as a business owner, you will create a ton of content from this. Whether you find your 3-word rebellion or not, it doesn't matter. You will create a ton of content ideas from this process. So that's the first step. And then I often recommend putting this aside. And in the book, there are more prompts for you to fill out and different ways to kind of get at these questions. But put it aside for a while. And then the second part is kind of doing some analysis, like looking for some of the themes that are emerging. What are the things that you're saying again and again? And you kind of want to approach it like a scientist, or get together with like a business bestie who always tells you the truth, not like somebody who sugarcoats stuff to you, like the real truth.
Yeah.
And analyze it and see like, well, what are some of the things that I'm saying over and over again? Because there will be patterns that emerge. There will be turns of phrase that you might not know that you've said before that come out, or verbs you really like. Or just, something unique that you say that you're like, oh, that's super interesting.
Yep.
So you analyze it and you start looking for these themes and for these words. And then you just kind of follow the rules, like 2 to 5 words, looking for some action verbs, and start playing with it. And that's the key.
This is so good. Would you recommend that somebody say some of this, you just said, to somebody that you trust so that they can repeat it back to you? Because oftentimes, right, we're too close to things. God, I know this is something that is so true for me, that I'm way too close to my own content. And then, so I need Stephanie to be like, girl, you need to talk about this, or this is what they need to hear. And so having somebody repeat back to you, and oftentimes they will be the ones who come up with Front Seat Life or 3-word rebellion or whatever.
Oh my gosh, yes. Because honestly, that's the thing I hear most when I'm on consult calls with prospective clients, is that I bought your book, I did all the exercises, I can't find this on my own. And when I work with clients, where I find their 3-word rebellions, sometimes it is like a blinking neon sign to me in their free writing. Like it'll be there and I'm just like, it's right there.
Yeah.
And other times they'll send me a podcast episode to listen to, and I'm like, oh, it's like buried in this run-on sentence that you had here.
Yeah.
Or they just say something like a turn of phrase at the end of a call, and I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, you just said this. This is super interesting.
It's almost like the Wordles. Remember years and years ago when the Wordles were a big deal, and you would type in stuff that people said over and over again, and you just go through and you type in all the words. So you could even do that, like you're saying. Go through and highlight the words that you say over and over and over and over again, and that is likely part of your 3-word rebellion, would be my guess.
Yes. Like, you could definitely do like a word cloud. I mean, I've seen people do that with these, like they create like a word cloud, because then it'll show you like, I remember I was working with a client once, and I think she used the word joy like 50 times in her free writing. And I was like, I think this word is quite important for you.
Yes.
And she's like, apparently, if I used it 50 times, she's like, I had no idea I used that word that much.
Isn't this amazing that often I find this, that we just don't take the time in our business. So I'm obsessed right now with Traction and Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman. I'm obsessed with this whole like visionary. So as you grow your business and as I grow my business, I 100% know that I am the visionary. And part of my job, and I believe part what you're saying to your clients right now too, and to the listeners, is that we have to take downtime. It is like it's part of our job. So when I go off to, a spa or a day or a week in Maui by myself or whatever, like that is actually part of my job, because we've got to have that spaciousness. If we're always so damn busy working in our job, we don't ever have this opportunity to see these ideas. And it's these journal prompts. And like I was going to say, one of the ways that I figured this out in my business is my very, very first business coach was like, sit down with a glass of wine whenever you want, start typing. Because I was a therapist at the time, and you were an academic and I was a therapist. And I said, I I meet my clients where they're at. There can't be a thing. Everybody's different, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, bullshit, just sit down and try it. And within minutes came a lot of the, not all of it, but a lot of the Front Seat Life methodology that which became a book and became all the things. It's like the tools in your tool belt. It's, what pisses you off, what you want in this world. What's your point of view? What's your opinion in this world? And people don't very often take time to figure this out. And I love that this is your business model, is to help people get super clear about this, so that how we started this podcast, then you can do it for the rest of your life because you love it.
Yes. Well, and what's great, like the book is, somebody told me once, they're like, I think you wrote a personal development book disguised as a business book, because the book is just like
so
full
good
of prompts of like about leadership, because part of it, I'm like, you need to be like a movement leader. So what does that look like? And who do you want to have in your movement? And, what does it look like for you to be devoted to the people in your movement, and like kind of stepping into that bigger role for yourself, because that's what a 3-word rebellion requires. And people are like, oh, I did so much reflecting. And it's not unusual for me to fundamentally change someone's business, because I get in there and I'm like, I know you said you do marketing, but you answered all of these questions like you're a coach. What is going on? Because like, you're not a marketer if you're a coach.
Yeah.
So we have to decide what your identity is in your business. And so there can be these like fundamental shifts, because all of a sudden they're taking this time to actually reflect. And the other thing I get a lot is like, oh, I didn't expect this process to be so fun because I thought messaging was really hard. I'm like, yes, it's really hard because you've been doing it on your own.
Yeah. Or not in the right way. And that reminds me of the saying that's out there, people have heard it a million times, your mess is your message. And so what part of that do you believe is true? Because I know that it's easy for me to write copy and to write things when I can put myself back in that place when I was stuck, when I was not unapologetically who I was, when I was, sad and depressed and overeating and all the things, the kitchen floor moments, my husband's leaving me, all the victimhood, all the things. Like I just put myself back in that place. So what part of that, do you like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's this, there is a messiness with our message. And I also think I'm also a big believer that you are not your message itself, because I really believe like with the 3-word rebellion, I kind of feel like it's a kid that is out in its world and it's doing its own thing. Like it's bigger than me. It's beyond me. It's going to have like, I'm going to die and it's still going to be there. Like
Love
it's the world doing its own thing. But I do think, but with that, like you have so much distance from that version of yourself.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not you, that's you, but it's not you anymore. So you can step into that role and know what it feels like because it's not you. So there's distance. And I think that's what we have to create. Like if we want to make a bigger impact, we've got to let other people be the messengers of our message and go out and talk about it and spread it. And so I think that's where things get really messy and gummed up when we are like, oh, I am my message. And it's like, no, because then our self-worth gets wrapped up in it. And if you're like, no, I am me, and the 3-word rebellion is its own thing, and it's going to go out and do its own thing, and it's going to reach people, and people are talking about it right now, and I probably don't even know about it, and that's awesome. And
isn't that your favorite moment ever, when you hear people like talking about it and you're like, oh my God, I love this so much. Like when I hear people talking about the drunk uncle or the baby in the back seat, and I'm like, oh my God, that makes me so happy. I know people are like sharing that with their kids and stuff. Like it's the best thing ever.
I know. I was at a conference last year and somebody like across the room was like, 3-word rebellion. And they didn't know my name, but they knew 3-word rebellion and they knew the hair. And so they were just pointing at me and screaming it. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's me.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. I really love this idea and it goes back to the big magic moment of that. This is an idea. This is my belief anyway. that these ideas are either God-given or universe-given. Like you were given this idea for a reason, and you had to step into the call of action to do something about it, as did I. I could have stayed in corporate America. I could have stayed as a therapist. I could have done whatever. But I was given this idea, as so many of my listeners are given an idea. It's, again, the butterfly landing on you. And then you get to decide, okay, do I want to do something with this? Am I too scared? I mean, that's a whole nother podcast of like the mindset around it, all the things around, like, do I lean into this? Is this my message? How do I get this out there? But you're right. These ideas are very much, they have their own life.
Mm-hmm. And they should, because if you want something that makes a difference in the world, that has a bigger impact, then it has to be bigger than you. Yeah. And so, like it's always felt like I was co-creating, and it still feels that way. Like I'm co-creating with this message. And I even had that epiphany about my business, like just over this Christmas, like, oh, I'm not my business. My business here is here to make money. Like there's that, I'm not my business. Business is here to make money. Message is here to make impact. Okay. Like let's get these things separated because it just makes it so much easier and cleaner to get your work out into the world when it's like your crap is mixed up with the other stuff.
Well, God bless you for that. My crap is definitely still mixed up in mine. I mean, I love that you're that first.
Still mixed up. Like, let me tell you. I mean, I have the clarity of this, but I will tell you. I
heard somebody making fun of the fact that like so you don't have kids either, and obviously either do I. And I heard somebody totally ragging on people like me that say my business is my kid, and just being like, that's bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know if it is. Like, I really believe that. So I'm not where you are in the evolution process of a business owner. I am still very wrapped up in my business being a part of me. So I will work on that.
Well, it's kind of funny. I was listening to a podcast with Brooke Castillo of the Life Coaching School, and she was talking about how her children had left to go to college. So she's an empty nester, but she also had hired a COO for her business this year. And so her business also left her household, and she was an empty nester of her business because she was no longer in charge of the day-to-day operations.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm all like, so for her, I think the business at first, it needs a lot from you.
Yeah.
And then as it grows and ages and you're able to bring on more people, then you do get to become an empty nester and it gets to go do its own thing.
I'm so close to that. Close to that.
Yeah, but I think it takes a while. Like when it's in its infancy, it needs more from you than when it's going to be, an adult and you can have a chief operating officer coming in and running the day-to-day operations and managing your team.
I love this idea. I think mine right now is possibly an unruly teenager, but they might have just gotten their driver's license. Like it's starting, it's on its way. They're going to go to college soon. This is a really interesting analogy. I've never thought about it like that. So it's definitely not an infant. I mean, thank God it's not an infant anymore. But yeah, it might have just gotten its driver's license. So there's some freedom for sure, but I'll be ready when it goes off to college. It'll, a few more years.
A few more years.
I like this. Okay. So I'm asking all of my podcast listener or my podcast guests this year, in closing, and this is always like putting people on the spot, but I always want this to be conversational, leaving us with some tips for being unapologetically who you are. So everybody I'm going to talk to this year has some sort of business, some sort of, their own story, and you clearly have your own story and your own business. So give us some closing tips, if you will, for your best advice for becoming unapologetically who you are.
If it scares you, push publish anyway.
So good. So good.
I mean, for me, all of the good things I've created in my business have come from things I've ranted about and have kind of ticked me off. I wouldn't have a business if I didn't rant about something and put it out into the world. So if it scares you, if you're worried you might offend someone, that's a good sign and you should put it out into the world, because I guarantee you, you will probably have multiple people saying, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said something because I think that way too.
Yep. I have a belief that people either need to love us or hate us. And when I do keynote speaking and I've gotten the reviews back, it's so hard to read them. But I will say, 90 to 95% lovingly, love me, think I'm like the best thing ever. And then there's like 5 to 10% that want to burn me at the stake. Like they're literally going to stalk me at the end and possibly do some harm to my body. Like they hate everything about me. They hate the way that I talk. They hate the way that I look. They hate everything. And I've learned to be like, okay, I did well. Like they loved me or they hated me. So I guess I had some sort of sassy enough, controversial enough opinion to have them love me or hate me. But again, vanilla does not sell. Right? Vanilla does not sell. Nobody goes and buys vanilla ice cream. I've said this for years. They want Rocky Road chocolate chip, all the things, all the yummies. They want all the stuff in there. You got to have a freaking opinion about something.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, Salt and Straw ice cream sells a bone marrow ice cream, for God's sake. So yes.
Lord.
It tastes like butter. It's delicious though.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to skip that, but I am all about all the sass, all the controversy. And yeah, they got to love you or hate you. Because if you're putting out, here's my biggest pet peeve, probably right now, is being fluffy. Being too nice. I'm so fucking over it. That and being condescending. People, coaches that pretend like they have it all figured out. Oh my God, I'm so over it. Quit pretending like you've been woken or that you're past all the traumas. We're all still growing. We're all still evolving. And so part of that is just being sassy, being unapologetically who you are, being honest, pushing published, and having a fucking opinion about something.
Yeah, have the typo. I'm all about the transparency. It's so funny. So on my computer, my period and my comma button stopped working this week. And I'm creating this 1-page brand messaging map that I thought would be a helpful tool for people have to organize their shit and organize their message. And it's just a really quick and dirty, downloadable product, and I don't have a period or a comma, and I'm just screw it, I'll figure it out, I'll put it out anyway. And if I don't have periods and commas, who cares? And there's always the typo police, and they're the ones who are always not participating or commenting, and you just got to let that go, because you're right. People will either love you or they will hate you.
All I have to say is go look at Beyonce's and Lizzo's comments on any sort of review and it'll make you feel better. I mean, people, they have 5-star and I do too. I have 5-star reviews and I have 1-star reviews on this podcast. Lizzo, people either want to marry her, women and men, everybody, or they want to burn her house down. It's that's how you know you're doing something, right? The reviews. It's just, yeah.
And it's okay. And I think you should celebrate the 1-star reviews. Just be okay with it, because at least you're putting your work out into the world. And those people probably aren't putting their work out in the world.
Yeah. I mean, Brené Brown says it best in her, documentary, in her book, in her special, all the things. And she just says, hey, if you're not participating, you don't get a fucking opinion. I mean, you just don't get an opinion about this. And you can, all the haters, whatever.
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
I cannot. Okay. Let's end. I think we could do this for 4 hours, but we're almost at an hour. Oh my God, we got to stop. Okay. I know you've already told people how to find you, but one last chance. Tell people how to find you. You're amazing. Talk to us. Tell us.
Okay. Yes. Well, if you want to connect with me, I am on Instagram at Dr. Michelle Mazur. If you want to find out about the 3-Word Rebellion book, you can go to 3wrbook.com. That's the number 3wrbook.com. And for everything else, I'm at drmichellemazur.com.
So damn good. So damn good. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, everybody, here is today's type tip. J's are doers and P's are beers. This is our natural tendency. So for all us J's, kind of controlling and managing and let's do it my way, I mean, let's get real kind of person, they come off as doers. It is our preferred way of being. It makes us more comfortable in a state of doing than being. P's, on the other hand, their most comfortable state is being, kind of going with the flow. And I don't know, let's, just figure out where the day takes us, or let's figure out where life takes us. I mean, let's get real. J's are future thinkers. What's next? Where am I going? Typically pretty ambitious, pretty bossy, pretty pushy. Where are we going? What's next? How can I do this thing? Like very masculine, dominant energy the majority of the time, regardless of whether they're feelers. They have some masculine energy. P's have this being energy. It's softer, more feminine. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. That's how they could really feel about their life. We're going to just kind of see how this unfolds. And that can actually cause anxiety in J's because they need so much more direction in their lives. All right. I hope that was helpful. From the bottom of my heart, truly, thank you so much for listening. I know that you have a ton of options, and the fact that you are taking time to listen to the Front Seat Life podcast means absolutely everything to me. If you're interested in learning more about the Front Seat Life way of life in the community, there's a couple ways that you can do that. First is always starting with your personality assessment tool. It's available on my website at jessicabutts.com. It's totally free, and it will help you figure out your personality type so you'll have some idea of what we're talking about. Next is, if you're interested in hiring me for a keynote or some coaching or strategy days or the fabulous and amazing Front Seat Life community, you can find out all about all of that at jessicabutts.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.